Welcome to Between Two Pastries, everybody. Today we have a very special guest. This is Nicole.
Hey everyone, it's Annie.
Annie, please introduce our guest for today.
All right, so we have, drum roll please, we have Brad Birkel. He is an accomplished, I think you're an accomplished Iron Man.
Nice.
And and runner as well, who just within the last couple months, it was in October, he completed a 214-mile adventure through northern Wisconsin. So pretty awesome feat for him, but I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about him. So Brad, could you tell everyone who you are, what you do, events you've done, what's your athletic life like?
I'm really not anyone special. I've been doing endurance events for almost 2 decades now. I started with long course triathlon, switched to ultra about 10 years ago. I've done multiple hundreds. I finished 10 Ironmans, and this was my longest by far adventure. And just so we're clear, I set the FKT on this trail and I took it from Annie.
Yeah. Only by a couple hours. It really wasn't by much.
Thank goodness you guys like each other.
I know.
Yes.
It's true. Brad is one of my closest and dearest friends, and so it's okay. It is totally okay. But recently there was an article that was published from the Wisconsin NPR, right?
Yeah, Wisconsin Public Radio.
Which is awesome, by the way. Yeah. And we will link to that article in our show notes for people in case they didn't catch it.
Yep. And the article headline read what, Brad? Can you tell us what it read?
It was a good friend of mine actually wrote the article, but he did not write the header. So he is a producer on the Wisconsin Morning Show, which I also appeared on in November, and this was just an article stemming from that. And it was just Wisconsin ultra runner sets fastest known time on Northern Wisconsin Trail. But then the paragraph header that came with it just listed the things that I ate, which I had shared on Facebook, mostly because it was funny. It was ridiculous. It was not the point of the article, my nutrition. Right. And the author of the article didn't choose that as the header. It was done by someone on their web team.
So to give listeners an idea, this is kind of what we're talking about today, is this concept of, here's an article that was posted and, a little blurb about food, and the comments were unreal. Some of you of which commented, which I thought was interesting, or noticed that I tagged Nicole in it to look at all of them, because I was so enraged that I couldn't even gather my own thoughts to be able to comment. Right. So it was one of those situations where we wanted to bring Brad on to have this conversation about his nutrition, because when I looked at what he ate, I thought, oh, nice. He probably could have done a little bit more, like in that regard. Right. But yet here we are listening to people say you shouldn't have eaten anything. You should have been fasting. You should have not had this, that, or the next thing, or how all you're eating is junk food. And really, again, not understanding the nature of the feat and the nature of nutrition in general. So, Brad, tell us a little bit, give us a little synopsis about what you ate.
First off, I didn't just decide to eat this. I've spoken to Annie, I've spoken to my coach about this, and I've developed an eating plan for all my endurance events over years of practice. I started with gels, and eventually we figured out that does not work. And then I switched to just fluid for a while, and that doesn't work. And Annie and her husband got me into eating candy, and that actually helped. That works. And training my gut and eating, these very simple, fast processing sugars is what worked. So I was eating Snickers. I was drinking Mountain Dew. I was eating Pringles. And last year, when I attempted this same event, which I failed at for a number of reasons, I discovered that Ensure works really well with my body. So I drank 51 of them over 2.5 days. That sounds terrifying, but it worked for me in that moment.
Well, and I think people forget, like, when you're out on an adventure like this, you're not eating per se breakfast, lunch, and dinner as you would in your office. Okay. You have to account for those meal calories in some way, shape, or form. Hence, we end up with 51 Ensures, right? Like, or some whatever number. It could have been a different thing, but that's ultimately what you chose and what worked for you. And we can talk about why a combination of carb, protein, and fat is going to work when you're running at a slower pace.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Or why, and you mentioned how, candy started to work for you versus liquid calories or gels. Well, those are different types of sugars, right? Like those are 3 different types of sugars. Candy being sucrose. Hey, that's what works, that, versus a maltodextrin or whatever. So it's again, it's just fascinating. And I'm really glad you shared that you had 51 Ensures, because that is horrifying.
It's terrifying.
I mean, that's the best part about it. I mean, everyone, I had a can of Pringles or 2, but like 51 Ensures.
Well,
but you got through it.
You got through it. And what's really cool is just kind of getting back to how you said, like, you have been training and priming your stomach for tolerance for 1.5 to 2 years in order to be able to make that happen. Because I love the fact that you had Ensure here. It's incredibly well balanced. It certainly gives you different types of carbohydrate, and it's awesome. And that protein as well, which is really going to serve you. But my point is that so many people will be like, oh, I can't have dairy, can't do that when I'm running, this kind of distance or miles or what have you. And you're here to prove that you can.
Yeah.
And just like anything, and Annie and I will probably talk about this, but I mean, it requires practice. It requires, and like you, trial and error. I love that you were just like, hey, gels just were not working for me. And what I'm curious about for you is, when you say they weren't working for you, or just fluid or what have you, what were you experiencing? What were you finding for yourself?
To be fair, I was coming from shorter distance racing to this longer distance racing. Yeah. So in a 2-hour, 3-hour event, a few gels will get you to the end and you'll be okay.
Totally.
I was trying to adapt that to much longer events, and you'd have to eat so many gels, and it's just, it becomes complicated. And another thing that people don't think about, especially when you're running 24 hours or more, eating becomes a chore. It is no longer enjoyable. It is no longer something you want to take the time to do. You need it, but that's the only reason you're doing it. And things like Ensure, you open the bottle, you fire it down, you keep going. It's easy. You're making a job simpler. It's no longer just about, this is delicious, or I want to eat this, or I'm craving this. It's just, I need calories. I need them fast. I don't want to think about it. So.
Yep. Awesome.
Well, and we've talked about that before, Nicole, where, Brad's talking about basically taking the emotion out of eating. And I'm not saying, negativity emotions and stuff. No, it's just, there's an emotion tied to it. There's an enjoyment. There's a social aspect. Yep. When you talk about sports, and we've said this on this podcast before, we talk about sports. It's not about being hungry or full. It is about, what are you doing and how do I fuel for what I'm doing based on the physiological things that are occurring in that time frame or thereafter, as we talk about recovery. So when Brad talking about hammering and Ensure, that's how it works, right? Like, he's taking care of his insides more so than, hey, let's sit down and have a meal and drink this and do that. Like, that's not what it's about. And we can we can certainly attest to that with any collegiate and pro athletes that we've worked with. It's the same thing. It's like mechanical. Okay, I sleep and I eat and I play and I eat and and it's a very mechanical thing for these athletes. And it's the same thing when you do stuff like this. So, I mean, I don't know. I struggle with how people don't understand this piece. But Brad, switching gears a little bit, how did you feel on your run from a nutritional standpoint? How did the food or intake that you did have, how did it make you feel?
Up until this event, everything I've done, I've always had issues with like a fullness followed by nausea where I stop eating. It could have been because I was moving quite a bit slower. But I want to credit it to how much food I was taking in early on that I never got to that point where I felt like I just didn't want to put food into my body. Running over 200 miles doesn't feel good at all. So I can't say I felt great because of this food, but it has nothing to do with the food making me feel good or not. It's so many confounding factors that were causing me to not feel good. But what I didn't feel was like I needed to stop or that I had ever bonked.
That's low energy.
Yes. So
Awesome.
I mean, I was maintaining baseline energy to keep moving forward. And in the last 13 miles, I was actually able to run some really fast miles. Because I still had the energy to do that. And I credit the nutrition, and training and all the other stuff. But a lot of it had to do with me keeping, my tank topped off.
Absolutely.
Can you tell the difference when you're feeling good from nutrition and when you're bonking? Like, what are, like, you kind of said this, but like, what are the symptoms, we'll call them, between the two? Like, what does nutrition feel like when it's working, and what does it feel like when it's not working?
For me, and I can only speak for myself and how my body feels doing these things, but it's a progression. First, I feel full, and then I stop eating. Now the fullness is probably because blood has moved to other parts of my body. So it's not processing what I put in. So I stop eating because the thought of like putting more energy in makes me nauseous. And once I stop eating, then I start getting tired mentally and physically. I start making worse decisions. I keep not eating. I start not drinking. And then what you expect to happen happens. I shut down.
Right.
So when I'm feeling good nutritionally, I can maintain the pace that I've been going at, assuming the rest of, my body, I don't have any muscular issues or that sort of thing. So
yeah. A lot of people will call that bloating sometimes when they get that like fullness, gut heaviness, they'll attest it to bloating. And again, and Nicole, you probably deal with this too. Brad, you've probably seen it with other athletes that you just talking to or you see on social. They talk about that and how they stopped eating and then they DNF, they don't finish or whatever it is that they're trying to do. And the solution is, as you've probably learned, Brad, is to eat or to drink, to get in, to take in more, right? And specifically more, and we'll throw that word out there, more of your processed things, more of your quick acting, doesn't take a lot to get through it, foods, or it could be electrolyte imbalance. But again, the only way to know if that's happening is through trial and error. It's that age old saying of like, what is it? Like if you keep doing the same thing, it's insanity or whatever. And people, that's what people do. Oh, I'm bloated or I'm nauseated, so I'm not going to eat anymore. Well, no, let's try something different, because that obviously is not working for you.
That's right.
Or try something different. So that's my little 2 cents there.
Also, just one thing that I found that works, again, just for me, is if I slow down. So if I'm moving a little too fast, my stomach is not working as efficiently as it could. And in a long race, you could, spend an hour walking. The first half of that hour, just walk, calm yourself, get your heart rate down. And then the second half of that hour, start eating again. And all of a sudden you turn everything around. And it's hard to explain to people, but and maybe it won't work for them, but it works for me almost every single time.
It works for me as well. You use up less time by getting your gut where it needs to be. Whether it's walking or slowing down or eating, stopping for 15 minutes to an hour, you take that time versus, no, I got to finish. I got to hammer. I got to, and I can't eat and I'm just going to keep going. Now you're not finishing, or it's 2, 3, 4 hours beyond your goal. Not worth it.
Not worth it.
Not worth it.
And again, this is for ultra marathons. This does not apply as well to shorter stuff. So,
right. It's a whole different beast. That's the whole thing. Brad, I'm curious on how your mental health or mental state kind of maintained or didn't maintain through that. I know that can be a challenge. I mean, my gosh, of course it is, the amount of stress that anybody is under during that, but I'm just sort of curious on how that was for you.
The first time I attempted this, it was a disaster. I came into the attempt lacking sleep and
Mm.
stressed out for a number of reasons. I thought that I wasn't going to have enough crew. So I came in a bad state. In this one, I had the people there that I wanted. I wanted to spend time with them. It never occurred to me to stop. I knew I could walk all of it if I had to. I didn't want to, but I knew I could. So I think I came in a lot more mentally strong, and that just kept me going.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
So let's talk a little bit about this article. So we already mentioned that the article headline and what the article was about was maybe a little bit different, right? Mentioning food. So let's talk about the comments that were made. So I know you brought it to my attention, Brad, like saying, don't go look at this post because you're going to be upset about it. And of course that's what he's just
Is that a carrot?
throwing the carrot out, like,
Yeah.
don't look at this. So of course, I go and look, and it was like one, and then Brian got involved. So 2 against like what, 30, like in terms of like
weird.
the voice of reason. And it built a little bit, but there was one girl who was, really on your side. I don't know if it's someone
Nope.
or just someone, I don't know her either, someone in the community. But the one person that really struck me was a female commenter, really pushing this concept of junk food, and if you would have eaten better, that you would have maybe been able to run faster or gotten there faster.
So bizarre.
Yeah.
Well, and just to clarify, it wasn't maybe I could have. If I did this, then I would
for
have
sure
been faster.
Oh, right. And I think it was actually, and we'll just say it was Brian, and everyone knows Brian is, so that commented like, what do you suggest he eat to get 400 calories in per hour,
right,
for 3 days essentially, or 2.5 days or whatever.
Yeah.
And the retort was homemade smoothies,
protein bars,
protein bars
in the middle of the wilderness.
And what else? It was one other thing that needed a refrigerator, I think. But that was the thinking, like, we literally are functioning out of your truck.
Yes.
Yeah. We had a cooler, a nice Yeti cooler, but it's again, there's still this concept that people think protein is fuel.
Yes, exactly.
Protein is not fuel. Protein is for recovery, which we might do during activities that are lasting longer.
Well, I think the whole thing about this is just to really throw it out there, is that there's too many uneducated people thinking they know what they're talking about, and causing really big issue. So it's like,
do you need a minute?
It's so true. But literally these people were just, they were saying absolute nonsense and then equating about that's what the problem is with our society. What? We're talking about fueling for a race. And by the way,
electrolyte powders. It was electrolyte powders.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, but it just so unbelievably strange.
Just to step back so your audience knows what they were responding to. This is the list of food that was in the article. I had 51 bottles of Ensure, 48 servings of Gatorade, 35 cans of Mountain Dew, 20 Snickers candy bars, 4 sleeves of Pringles, and then 8 grilled cheese sandwiches, 5 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and so on. So it's astonishing, and it's a lot. But it was that list that people were reacting to. In a sense, I can understand how it's shocking, but no one knows how to prepare for this when you start commenting on things like this. And that's where people get themselves in a lot of trouble. Even
ultra runners just doing races don't know how to do stuff like this, or would be astounded by that. And that's where, again, if it's, I don't know, I'm not a race car driver. I'm not commenting on how much oil you go through. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know anything about it. Why would I comment on this? So that's the piece that I think we really struggle with. And I know the other day, Brad, you mentioned how, one of us mentioned how it's all of these experts, bunny ears, commenting on things that they know nothing about. And everyone is an expert in the field of nutrition in however they're viewing it in their brain. And if it's not, if they don't see what they're viewing, oh my God, you better watch out, because it's like all of a sudden this defense comes at people of like, you need to do this and this. And it's like, whoa, what is happening here? Like, where do you don't even understand the situation? And that's, I think, the hardest part, especially as a practitioner, to see that, because even a dietitian who doesn't do anything with sports at all is going to be able to look at that and say, yes, that will fuel your body for something like what you did. You know, and I'm going to bet, and I don't know, because I honestly, I don't even think we talked about this. Did you lose weight after?
I did not weigh myself.
You didn't. Okay. I wasn't sure if you did or not.
I didn't want any of that hanging over my head. I put some extra weight on for the attempt, just to be safe, so I wasn't coming in
smart,
low,
smart.
Depleted. Yep.
Very
so
smart.
I was probably like 5 to 10 pounds over my normal walk around weight. But I don't know where I was at the end of it. So
okay. The only reason I ask is because even though people see this laundry list of foods, you know, oftentimes in these adventures, you're still not getting enough, or it's still like
that's
your
exactly
body
right.
still has a response in that way. So that's why I ask. And that's fine if you didn't weigh yourself, you know.
When I finished, I ate almost a pan of lasagna, like an hour after finishing.
Wow.
So I was ready to eat, and then I continued to eat for like 3 weeks. So.
That's so awesome. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
It's amazing. But it was really cool as your gut wasn't destroyed to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, you know? No, I never felt gut sad, which was a surprise to me. So I'm glad that I figured my body out and I had success with it.
Right. Wow. Right. Yeah. And I think that there's, again, I know you weren't offended by the article at all, and probably thought everyone's comments were quite funny. But you know, I think you were brought into the world of our world of like how
welcome
to this, an article that says, you know, hey, here's this article about this person, what great things, and they ate this, and all of a sudden it becomes this rabbit hole of negative defense.
You were so attacked. You were so attacked. I was just mind blown. I mean, I'm almost speechless, because it's like, you can't speak to that. You cannot speak to that. It's sorry. Calm down.
I was attacked. I did not feel attacked. I did enter the comments as myself and start retorting to people who were then arguing with me about this arbitrary person in space who they didn't realize was me. I had to say, no, listen, you idiot. This was me. I did this. Don't tell me what was going on in my head or in my training. And they just had no clue. They just wanted to rail on somebody on the internet.
That's right.
Right.
But
think about,
they're not sharing good information. It's not helping.
No.
Think about how that can affect. I mean, you have a thick skin. You're a really secure individual. At least you present that way. So think about people who are less and, you know, not as secure, who don't have as thick of a skin. That not only can send someone to just simply be tearful, but also now I can't eat anymore. I shouldn't fuel. I need to not listen to my treatment team of my doctor or dietitian or whomever. I should fast. Oh, this person, one person who claims they have success with this, I better do that. And it's really hard because everyone is so individual. I mean, you and I did this same exact adventure, same mileage, about the same time, give or take. And we ate very different, yet similar, right? It was the same types of foods, but we chose different things to be eating based on, I don't know, sometimes some desire, and mostly what your gut will do.
Yeah.
Well, even more so, I mean, you were there for my attempt and I was there for yours. I know what I need to eat in certain points, and I know what to give you.
Correct.
And those aren't the same thing. and I can make that distinction in my head very easily.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have a different idea that you're just forcing onto people
No,
because
Wow.
you think it's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, the hardest part, especially, again, social media is a place that I think was invented for people to post pictures of their dog and families. And it's become this
Oh.
place where here's this article and I'm going to destroy you in
Yeah.
it.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, people love speaking out and hiding behind a screen.
Mhm.
They love to hide. I mean,
Especially around
it's
nutrition.
incredibly coward-like. I mean, it's incredibly coward-like. But I mean, it's for sure just a form of bullying, and it's a shame that there's that much of that going on, and we aren't just uplifting. I mean, when I saw the comments, I was so like heartbroken. I don't even know you, Brad. I was like sitting there feeling heartbroken for you. I'm like, this man, it just only because I love my Annie so much and just know what she went through. And so I was feeling for you, Brad, where I'm like, holy, you just did this incredible thing. And these people are just talking about your Mountain Dew consumption. I mean, come on. I mean, it was just so weird. Everybody should have been applauding you and being like, oh my gosh, dude, seriously.
Well, and there was,
like, this is awesome.
There was one voice of reason on there where she was like, hey, I'm pretty sure he doesn't eat like this on a regular basis. Like, can we all just start to think about how this was this nutritional plan was specific to this weekend?
Yeah.
Like, do we really think he has 51 ensures a day on a regular basis? Like, turn your brains on, people, right? Like, that's where it was like some of these comments were just so distorted and gone.
Yeah.
And again, you could argue, oh, they're just trolling you. That might be true. But again, you get the right person. Now they're in treatment. Now they're with their doctor.
Well, and that's the problem. And that's the problem. I think that the crazy thing is, why does it matter? Who cares what you ate? I don't care if you ate a pig the entire time you ran, because that's what felt good to you.
Yeah.
You ran this thing. I don't care what you fueled on. Why do people care? I mean, it's so bizarre to me. Anyway.
Right.
All right. Well, Brad, just in wrapping up here, are there any last words or last comments or last anything you want to?
Are you going to do it again?
Probably. Are you?
Oh, only if it's with you. We have to do it together.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
You can't beat me again.
Yeah. I just think know what works for your body. Just everyone practice with stuff, because and talk to a registered dietitian, and they can guide you, but they can't tell you exactly what to put in your body, because no one knows what's going to work until you try it out. It just happens that this stuff worked in my body. I haven't had any of those things since I've been running, and I have no desire to, but they worked then. It was just fuel for the machine for that. And now I'm back to, a normal, healthy athlete's diet. I mean, that's what I do on a regular basis. But when you're fueling for an event, no one can tell you what's going to work for your body until you try all the things. Sometimes you find that thing right away and it works. Sometimes it takes a decade to figure it out. But either way, you have to do it for yourself. Don't just listen to everyone on the internet and what they're suggesting. Figure out what works for you.
Yep.
Well said, Brad.
Yeah.
One thing we always like to ask everybody that we interview is what your favorite food is. And I guess it's not Ensure.
It's definitely not Ensure. It's Ensure does bad things to your body when you. Let me tell you.
It's true.
I don't.
Do we need to ask you more? What's your favorite meal? Would that be better?
Yeah, that's cool.
I think my go-to was being just a giant plate of nachos. Like that. That's that's my favorite. I mean, I don't do it all the time, but I love a good.
Is it a 6-pack? Is that what you call it?
Oh no, we don't have to talk about that. That was driving home from finishing.
Or was that maybe that was tacos?
I got way too much Taco John's. Like,
oh, that's
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, that's not nachos. That's tacos. Got it.
No, but a good homemade plate of nachos is fantastic.
Nice.
Love it.
That's
Love
great.
it. Well, thank you so much, Brad, for being
thank you.
here.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it. Awesome.
Cool. Well, Brad, it's good seeing you during the week. We will see you this weekend.
That was good.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, you bet.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, Brad.